Hello and welcome back to the Growth Circle podcast. I am your host, Lincoln Amstutz, and today I've got the privilege of interviewing Aaron Hale and a little bit about Aaron before I introduce him and bring him on here. Aaron Hale has served in the Navy for 14 years, in addition to being an Army team lead in one of the military's most dangerous jobs, the Explosive Ordnance Disposal. During this time, Aaron was blinded by an IED. However, he did not let this injury hold him back, and he continued on to becoming an EOD instructor, marathon runner, motivational speaker, and most recently, a real estate investor. Aaron is a proud husband and father of three and has a remarkable story that I'm excited to get into today. So without further ado, Aaron, welcome on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Lincoln.
Yes. Thanks for taking the time. And I want to jump right in. You've got an incredible story and a long list of accomplishments, from very successful military career to now running 300-mile ultra marathons. Can you take us to the start of your journey in the military and give us some insight on how you trained and how that military trained you to become who you are today?
Well, right off the bat, I got to apologize. Of course, I'm 100% blind. I'm also 100% deaf except for this cochlear implant, which is not a hearing aid. It totally bypasses my ears. It sends a digital signal right to my the cochlea bone, the auditory nerve. So it's Bluetooth connected to my phone, my computer, and that's all got the voiceover technology. And of course, technology, medical marvels, miracles being what they are, 40, 50 years ago, I would have been pulling the full Helen Keller. But nowadays, I'm able to actually get, communication in and out. And we're able to talk over the internet. It's just 101 ways I can screw something up. But
It's incredible though, like you're saying, with that technology they've got. That is amazing that, yeah, we're, like you said, able to have this conversation even here now.
yeah, it's absolutely incredible just how far technology's come. In fact, besides just being able to speak with you, also able to run a couple businesses, both a fudge company and a couple real estate businesses, all from my computer, and communicate with my wife, my partner, our team, and do most of it without having to leave the house, which also affords me the ability to be a stay-at-home dad. Early afternoon, I call it quits and I start making dinner and put on my Mr. Mom apron.
Right. There you go. Now that's you do pretty much everything with the businesses just from your house. You've got a setup there that you're able to work on.
Well, it really is a blessing. I love being the stay-at-home dad, and it's if you try to find the silver lining, the benefits of any situation. I got to come home from the battlefield a little bit early. My life was completely changed from the IED blast. But now I get to be a full-time dad to my three boys. I've got a 12-year-old son and two identical twin 4-year-old boys. Identical twins, because I shouldn't be the only one that's confused. And it's great. It's a lot of fun. And I'm also absolutely loving being a real estate investor.
Yes. Well, it's neat to hear all the different avenues that you're in right now as far as business and life. And I definitely want to get into some of the real estate. Can you tell us a bit about your military experience? Kind of give us some background on yourself and what that was like.
Absolutely. Well, even before the injury, I had a couple pivot points, or at least one big one. I started off in the military. I enlisted in the Navy as a cook, and I spent 8 years, half of which were in Italy, stationed right in Naples and Gaeta, Italy. Some of that on board the flagship USS LaSalle, cooking for a 3-star admiral. And it was fantastic. I got to see the Mediterranean, visit all sorts of countries all around Europe. It was hardship duty, it certainly was not, but it was absolutely an amazing experience being stationed overseas. I love the culture, cuisine, of course, and just it was a great way to spend my young adult years. But then I didn't enlist it in 1999 when we were at peace, and I actually joined for some pretty selfish reasons. Of course, I'm a patriot. Yeah, so I was cooking for a 3-star admiral, and joined for more selfish reasons. I was absolutely a patriot. I'm always loved being American and everything it stood for, God, country, and Constitution, and all that. Except I needed more of the internal skills, values, ambition, work ethic, that kind of thing. And the military was what I needed. So I joined, and I got just that. I gained rank very quickly and responsibility. And then all of a sudden, there were 2 wars happening. And I realized that while I really appreciated my job and my service and the time I spent in the Navy and what I was doing, I felt as though my skills, my abilities weren't being put to the best use for the Navy or for the military, for the war effort. I wanted to do something more direct. So I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan. Of course, I'm still a cook, so I went from cooking for the admiral and his top brass to cooking for about 500-600 ISAF, NATO troops out in Farah, Afghanistan, and PRT Farah. And it was definitely a shift, but that's when I met some EOD technicians, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, military's bomb squad. And everything about it was exactly what I was looking for. The tight-knit brotherhood, the technical aspect of the job, and the fact that they're first responders on the battlefield. They're the ones that go running towards danger when everyone else is running away. So I put in a request to go from Navy cook to Navy EOD, and they promptly denied my request. I guess they appreciated my cooking too much.
I guess that's a compliment in a certain roundabout way. Like, yeah, we can't afford to lose you here on this end, but it is admirable and great that you were doing this. You're in this role as a chef, and then you wanted to transition into something more hands-on and in the action, like you said. So it sounds like at some point did the opportunity come back around, or you try again?
It was just the fact that they weren't taking cooks into the EOD program. They take certain source jobs, master at arms, bosun's mate, that kind of thing. So when I got back from my deployment, my contract was coming to an end, and it was decision time whether to re-enlist or not. I just decided to let the contract expire, and I went over to the Army recruiter, and I told him what I wanted to do. I handed him my service record, and they welcomed me right in. So I changed uniforms. I started training up to be a soldier. And then I went to EOD school.
Okay. So that was the start. After, okay, that had ended, you re-enlisted then with the Army, for that specifically. So I am curious, you said entering the military, it definitely grew you up in certain ways, taught you some lessons, and I do want to hear a little bit about, how that changed your, maybe work ethic, mindset. You always were a patriot and loved your country. How did the military help train you personally on some of your skill sets?
Well, it was definitely a change in culture, going from the Navy to the Army. But one great thing about going to EOD is that all the branches send their EOD students to the same school. We all train together at the same place. And each of the branches speak a different language. All EOD techs, regardless of branch, speak the same language. And it's really important because on the battlefield, if I get paired up with a Air Force or Marine EOD tech, we can still do the job together. So we all trained together, and I became an EOD technician, went to Fort Drum, soon found myself in Iraq, and then soon thereafter, I was back out in Afghanistan for my second deployment to Afghanistan, third deployment total. And this time I was a team leader. This was 2011. And it's the guy who gets in the bomb suit is the team leader, the highest ranking guy, the most experienced one. And about 8 months into the deployment is when there was an IED, roadside bomb that had my name on it.
Yeah, that's an incredible, transition that you have going from the Navy to the EOD, and then this 8 months later, this explosion. What came about after that? I'm sure your life in so many ways got completely changed. How do you what happens after that for you, and how do you handle that in the time since the explosion, and mentally, what did you do to continue on?
There's a lot of things in the military that I learned that helped help carry me through some of the difficult times in the future. There was a lot of lessons that we as service members are taught, that just there's things about resilience, and the fact that at any given moment we could be moving on to somewhere else and packing up and doing a whole entirely new job, new mission, new location. And you gotta enter in these situations with an open mind, willingness to learn, and and perhaps sometimes enthusiasm, maybe a little grumbling. But I always knew that so long as I had a strong team around me, that no matter what the situation was, we'll be able to figure out a solution. And that was really important in EOD, because one example I like to use quite a bit is the fact that each team is set up of 3 EOD techs, a team leader and 2 team members. And this is at least true in the Army. And every one of these teams is given this quad-con or tri-con, a big shipping container full of tools, from bomb suits to robots and all sorts of different power tools and everything to defeat everything that goes boom on the battlefield, from bullets to nuclear weapons, weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, biological weapons. We've got tools for everything. But then we get down to the battlefield and we get this armored truck, and you can't jam everything into that truck. You got to leave a few tools behind, and you got to do a bit of a triage on what you might most likely encounter out there, and bring the tools with you need. Sometimes you don't always have the tools, exact tool you want, but at least you have tools you need. Then when we were in Afghanistan, and we were doing these dismounted patrols on dirt trails no vehicles could get on. Now it was, what do you have that you could pack on your back and still perform the mission? And yeah, just because you didn't have the right tool to do the job doesn't mean that you just don't do the mission, or you don't perform your duties. You still have a job to do, and you have to do it right. So it comes down to, using your creativity, your skills, your abilities to defeat whatever unknown difficulty was ahead of you. So you take that and translate it into post-injury, blindness, going deaf. I've lost a couple tools. I had to leave a couple tools behind. But I'm still a father, son, brother, husband. I still have a mission, a responsibility, a duty to perform. And I love how General Mattis put it in his book, Call Sign Chaos. At least what does he say? In the Marines, things being hard was never a good excuse for mission failure. So I use what tools I have available to me. I create new skills and learn new techniques for doing different jobs, and I carry on and move forward.
Right. And I think it's such a testimony to your resilience and taking those lessons that you learned through those years of military, of times of transition, and picking up and moving on the next mission, the next task, and utilizing what you have. I'm sure at times when you didn't have all the proper resources, taking that same idea, those same principles, and applying it to you personally, post-military, starting businesses, doing athletic accomplishments and endeavors there. That it sounds like it's definitely stuck with you all the way through, and it's impressive to see, because a lot of people aren't able to accomplish half the things you have, with these key things like eyesight and hearing. But it's again, really amazing what you've been able to continue on with here. Like you said, your responsibility still remains as a father, and the different businesses you have set up nowadays, partnerships, I'm sure. What came about after this time in the military? What did this transition you into, and did this get you started in real estate in the years to follow, or other businesses?
Well, it didn't come without bad days, and my own grumbling and complaining. Who was it? Hal Elrod, the Miracle, author of the Miracle Morning, gave himself the 5-minute rule, and he would give him 5 minutes to lament on whatever it was. You give him 5 minutes to complain, cry, be pissed off, and then tell himself, can't change it. And I love that. You worry about the things you can affect, and the things you can't change. You don't waste your emotional energy on it. So, of course, I'm sitting in the hospital bed in Walter Reed, and not gonna be able to see ever again. And I don't know if I might have taken a little longer than 5 minutes, but when that had passed, I realized that I wasn't the only person in that hospital, and there were warriors up and down those halls fighting their battles. Who was I to quit? Who was I, who was I to say that, my difficulty was, harder than theirs? I have no monopoly on pain. So that's when I just got to work. I decided I was going to be, if I was going to be blind, I was going to be the best damn blind guy I could be. And I just applied that to everything. You're going to be a father, be the best father you can. You're going to be a husband, do it with, as much effort as you would anything else. And then it was about 4 years into this blindness thing when a complication from the injury happened. The blast had also cracked my skull, and I'd been leaking spinal fluid for years and right through my sinuses. I hadn't realized it, but a path out is a path in, and I'd contracted bacterial meningitis and lost my hearing. So it almost killed me. I was right back in the hospital, and when I got out, it had also stolen what was left of my hearing that the blast hadn't taken. So I was sitting there totally deaf, totally blind. The first time the doctor told me what was happening, I asked him, "Hey, doc, you're telling me I'm going to be blind and deaf. Does that mean I'm never going to have to pretend to pay attention ever again?" I didn't hear my mom or my wife laughing, but I attributed that to the meningitis. I thought it was pretty funny. But there was a chance that I'd get my hearing back, but it would take a long, long time. In fact, even 6 months later, I was still pretty much trapped in my own body. Everything was turned off. All my talking computers and phones and all that living, those aids to daily living silenced. And also lost my vestibular balance. Over the past 4 years, not only was I learning how to be, a blind guy, I'd also started mountain climbing and rock climbing, whitewater kayaking, running marathons. And I couldn't even get on my treadmill because, it was like I had vertigo. But, the loss of my hearing and that inner ear gyro. So, I was sitting there. Maybe it was my 5-minute rule. Maybe it was a little bit longer. I was sitting at my breakfast bar, feeling sad, and the holidays were coming up, and I just decided that I was gonna stop thinking about what I couldn't change, and started thinking about throwing a Thanksgiving feast. I decided to just invite everybody. We had tons of people coming, neighbors, friends, even a few of the EOD students that get stranded over the holidays at the barracks. And I started cooking weeks in advance. I started making cakes and pies and cookies and stuff like that, and batch after batch of fudge. I could still do it, even though I couldn't see the stovetop and I couldn't hear the bubbling. I could still cook. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, said she noticed two things. One was a smile on my face she hadn't seen in 6 months. And two, she noticed the fudge was just piling up.
Right. So that's incredible though, that in that moment you're like, okay, I'm not gonna any longer focus on these things that I can't control, I can't change here, but okay, what can I do? I'm gonna go and cook. I'm gonna go and make this fudge and prepare for this dinner. And I think what you're getting at here is huge of again, not focusing on those limiting things that, you're not able to control outside of what you can handle, but what can I do right now? what are steps I can take in this moment that will, be a benefit, that will push forward, and that's what you did. So I'm curious how that meal went and kind of what came after that.
I think what started as kitchen therapy, right? It was just a way to get through this difficult time. Just the cooking, like a lot of things, I just kind of take it to the max. And, when my wife started sneaking it out the front door because we had too much of it, sneaking, like you got to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. People started coming back and asking if they could have more. They could buy some from us. And I said, of course you may. And the entrepreneurial gene in me sparked something off, and all of a sudden we had a business. We started this fudge company, Extraordinary Delights, or EODfudge.com. And we were off. In a couple of years, we were actually generating some decent revenue. We'd moved out of our home kitchen into a large commercial space, and we were generating revenue that we wanted. We'd built a business, but we'd also built kind of a job for ourselves in running a business. And what we wanted to do was take the revenue and start buying assets. And that's when we started looking towards real estate, so that eventually we wouldn't have to make so much fudge to have an income. And thankfully we've also hired for the fudge business, so I don't have to do all the cooking. But that's when we started looking towards the real estate and buying single family residences, fixing them up, turning them into rentals.
Got it. So that was the start. You started this, the fudge making business, the Extraordinary Delights, and just as something you were doing anyways. And then I like that, just like you said, your entrepreneurial mind kicked in, and you're like, hey, we can make this a business. We can actually start selling this and making a profit here while I'm doing it anyways. And that just grew into what sounds like a full-fledged business now with our employees and such. And then the natural I guess proper maybe response to that was, okay, we've got this extra income, where we're putting it into, and it was real estate. Why real estate for you? Did you have experience in it? Did you just like it better than the idea of the stock market or other investing?
I actually didn't look to real estate first, because I had the same misconceptions that a lot of people do. I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to, deal with tenants, and I don't want to get those 2 a.m. calls about leaky toilets. And so I first looked into the stock market, and I was going to do the Warren Buffett value investing. And what I found was, I read up on, all of the value investor, and I still love it. I still love buying quality companies at a discount and just holding them in my IRA. But the problem was, one is that reading financial prospectus and really getting into the company's finances and earnings and spreadsheets and all that is really boring. I drove me crazy. Plus, just for me and the voiceover, the blind accessibility software, reading spreadsheets is like playing Minesweeper on the computer. At least is for me. There are plenty of other blind people that do a much better job than I do. But again, it was not something that interested me. So at some point, I started getting into a few real estate podcasts and just learning a little bit more about it. And it sounded, a lot more attractive. You're actually, buying something tangible. You're putting equity into it. You have a lot more control over the value of something than just buying something and hoping it goes up in value. And you've got it also pays dividends in the form of rent, but you also have control over that. So my mom and my brother in Ohio had already done a couple flips, had some connections with contractors and all that. So we already had kind of a pre-made team, boots on the ground in Akron, Ohio, which is where I grew up, and I already knew the streets. I knew the area, so I could picture where these places were and knew, where the places to invest were, where the places to stay away from are. And that's where we bought our first properties.
Yeah, that's really neat. And I like something that you said there when it comes to, real estate over maybe some other forms of investing like stocks or different investments that you can't really control those, right? Real estate is a tangible asset that you can have an impact on, whether it's improving the property, getting, high quality tenants in there, just doing what you can to take care of this asset versus when you're putting your money in, some other investment account, you're kind of passing it along, hoping that business, does what it needs to do. And, in a sense, it's out of your control. And so for you, like you have, a family members, it sounds like, kind of boots on the ground there where you're investing. So they're able to inform you on, okay, here's the property, here's the deal. You can do your research into buying right and putting in the money, et cetera, versus, somebody else having all the control over your money and hoping that the investment turns out well. You have a little bit more impact there. And that's another brief benefit to real estate, and kind of sounds like why you chose it. So it sounds like single families is what you got into there to start. Was it for fix and flips, for rental properties? What was your focus?
That's a great thing, as you mentioned. It's a great thing, the compounding property of stacking assets. We built the fudge company, and from putting that front end work into building a business, it generates revenue for us. It's more passive now than anything, and that revenue we buy other assets. We also pay ourselves, an income, a salary, but that revenue goes to buy other assets, which go to buy other assets. So it has that same compounding effect as putting money in an interest-bearing account or something, but at the same time we're buying more and more accounts, and they're feeding themselves. We now have we've recently sold a property, but we have 3 in Ohio, a duplex and 2 single families, and the duplex was 2 long-term rentals. We're now converting one side of that duplex into a medium-term rental. There's 3 hospitals within a 15-minute drive of this duplex, so it's a great place for traveling nurses or traveling university staff, because the University of Akron is right there, as well as other corporate traveling people, such as, because Akron is the rubber city. It used to be the rubber capital of the world. The headquarters of BF Goodrich and Firestone are all still right there in Akron. So there's plenty of those medium term, 30 days or longer type travelers. They're always looking for a place that's not quite as expensive as your nightly hotel stay or Airbnb, but don't want to get an unfurnished long-term rental if they're only going to be there for 3 to 6 months. Our other two properties are both single family that we found in state of disrepair, fixed it up, forced a whole bunch of equity into it, and turned into short-term rentals. They're gorgeous, and it's funny, sweetheart. Before I die, I want to see Akron, Ohio, is something said by nobody ever. But
hey, I'm in the same boat. I got to see what Akron's all about.
But these short-term rentals in Akron are cleaning up. They're doing great, and it's steady through most of the year. I mean, of course, the winter slows down a little bit because it does get a little chilly up near Lake Erie, but there's plenty of, like I said, travelers, and a lot of them short-term. And it's a good, stable place, unlike some of the more traditional vacation areas. These are more of your university and high school graduates, visiting families coming to watch a graduation, or a family coming to visit patients at the hospital. There's traveling professionals. There's a lot of reasons to rent a hotel or rent an Airbnb other than going to the beach or going to the mountains. So finding a short-term rental in a nice secondary or tertiary market actually works out to be really good, steady income. From that, we purchased. A couple of years ago, I even partnered with a fellow wounded Navy buddy of mine who I met on my first deployment to Afghanistan when I was still a Navy cook. He and I started finding off-market deals in the Pensacola area, close to where I live now in Florida. So we now have 3 projects here underway. We've got a project going on up in Ohio. 2 of them are nearly complete, and we'll just go right on to the MLS. One actually just hit the MLS this week, and we've got an awesome, really cool project going on where the property is 1.5 acres. It's got 2 houses. It's separated by, it's actually connected by a covered pool. So it's actually considered one big structure, but it's 2 4-bedroom houses. And right across the driveway from these 2 houses is a 5-car workshop garage. And so we're going to be converting that thing into a 3rd unit, a game room, an entertainment room, and build a whole outdoor fire pit grilling area. And we'll have, when it's all done, 3 short-term rentals or 1 super listing that a large multi-generational family could rent out instead of doing a block of hotel rooms when they come down to the Panhandle. We're really excited about this project.
That's neat. I haven't heard of many properties quite like that, with that setup and the multiple buildings and, kind of all connected. So it could be one, like you're saying. I feel like there's got to be a need for that when there's so many regular single family type of short-term rentals and, Airbnb setups, that larger for, like you said, a large family, maybe even a group of friends that want to get together. That I think that would do really, really well, especially there in that location, like you're saying. So yeah, that'll be exciting to kind of hear the progress on. But Well, for you, what made you choose the short-term rentals over long-term rentals? Even, when you started out there in Ohio, was it just seeing the need? What made you choose that? And then why even try out the midterm rental, which I think is a great idea, compared to the nightly? What's the decision making behind those?
We'd actually started off looking for a midterm rental before going into the short-term rental space. When we were starting our second project, we bought it specifically to turn into a rental for traveling nurses. In fact, my sister, before starting her family, was a traveling nurse. So we had a little bit of an insight into that from her perspective. Plus, the fact that there's many, there's a lot of medical centers really close to this house. But we found out very quickly we purchased a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. Actually, it was 5 beds and 1 bath, and we converted. We actually reduced the bed count and increased the bath count, which is kind of unheard of. But after reducing the bedroom count and fixing this place up, what we quickly found out is that apparently we were gonna rent by the room to individual traveling nurses. What we found out is that I guess traveling nurses don't like to share bathrooms, but it wasn't getting a whole lot of attention. It wasn't getting a lot of traffic, so we just pivoted. We shifted a little bit and just rented the whole thing out on Airbnb, and that took off like gangbusters. It worked out great.
Yeah. So you shifted, to what made sense. Obviously, you gave it a go with that first one, but I'm glad to hear that those short term are going well, because I know there's some seasonality and in different parts, but like you're saying, with that part of that city, and it's not necessarily such a tourist destination that it's hot in the summer and then there's just nothing in the winter. Maybe some slowdown, but still some consistency, just because you're attracting people that are there for visiting family, hospitals, colleges, whatever it is. So I think, you're willing to be flexible there on what made sense. So is that, what's kind of the goal moving forward here? Is it to still find good discounted properties and make them into these short-term, midterm rentals? Or are you wanting to do anything different in real estate? I don't know.
When it comes to especially the short-term rentals, one of the important things is there's a lot of talk about that market becoming saturated, and it's not. I don't believe that's to be true, but there's definitely more competition than there was a few years ago. So we found out, and what we've developed is a uniqueness. The difference is that short-term rentals is not simply, it's definitely not passive. It's definitely an active investment. You're in the hospitality space, and you got to treat it like that. So you got to be, you got to stand out, and you got to be unique. You got to take care of your customers, your guests. So my mom, who was an incredible artist, did the interior design on this house. In fact, houses. The first property did so well after she designed it, and she does the local management of it. And my mom, even before retiring, used to run a janitorial service. So now she's also runs our housekeeping staff, and she does a great job. And Yeah, we have a meticulous standard, high standard for cleanliness, for service, for visual appeal, and the accommodations, the amenities. And it was working. This one house was doing so well that we bought a house just 3 doors down and fixed that up. And now, just like that project we're working on in Florida here, our guests could rent one of the houses or both of the houses as one listing. It's another unique offering in case they're they're larger groups. The two houses are very close to each other, and they can travel together.
Yeah, I think you found something, something huge there with the short-term rentals in that you've got to stand out. You've got to be, it's got to be something unique to somebody to come and visit, right? Because if there are more and more Airbnbs, popping up or whatever the case is, you got to have something that attracts people to stay there. And a lot of that is just knocking out the basics, right? Very clean plates, obviously, fair pricing, you can always track that and figure out, make sure you're competitive with the surrounding areas. But I like the fact that she does really well with the interior design of it, the furniture, the look of it all, because that goes a long way when people are scrolling through online looking for where they want to stay, something that stands out there. And then with providing that good service that keeps them coming back again and again. So the numbers that I'm seeing are there's an increase year over year for the last few years now of people staying in short-term rentals. There is an increase, but there's a higher increase in the amounts of short-term rentals that are available. So it's not that there's not, an audience, there are customers for it. It's just, what are you going to do to stand out and make sure that yours is the one that does stay booked and that people come back to? And I think you're doing a good job with finding that, and it sounds like you'll just keep continuing that as long as people are staying there and those are working out well.
Well, you said it right there with that repeat customers. And that's one of the really important things, is that you have to leave an impression and make them want to come back. So a lot of our guests have already been there once before. We do that through collecting their emails and sending them a newsletter, giving them discounts for referring us to other travelers, their friends and family. And we build a brand around that, basically create a fan base around these properties, so that when they need to rent someplace, it's not just a random listing on Airbnb. It's we're going back to that Dutch colonial in West Akron. We're going back to that Akron, Rubber City was it? What was it called? It's a bungalow in West Akron, and because they know that they're going to get that quality and treatment, whereas a lot of times on Airbnb, it's a crapshoot what kind of quality you're going to get. So that's what we aim for.
That's good. Yeah, you've got to treat these properties, not just as another passive type investment that'll run itself, but these are truly, you're in the hospitality business. You got to look at each property as its own little business of what are we going to do to improve this, the customer service, like you said, referrals for new people. And it's all a huge part in running a good, successful short-term rental, something I'm definitely working on and learning myself with the one I've got here in Springfield as of now. But I'm definitely going to take a few of these things and apply them. So that's some good insight there. But I wanted to, as we kind of transition here to the later part of the podcast, we got some questions we ask each guest that come on. So if you're ready, I wanted to throw these at you one by one here. Number one being, what is one of the best pieces of advice that you have been given?
What was the question?
What is one of the best pieces of advice that you have been given?
Best pieces of advice I've been given: lean into it. Lean into the hardship. You know, whenever, and this was somebody, as a fellow service member, one of my, my first sergeant told me, is that whenever things are getting hard, you lean into that hardship, because it's not going to be tough forever, and you're only going to get stronger for it. So face things, if not with enthusiasm, but with the faith and hope that you'll be better off for the experience afterwards.
That's good. That's so good. And again, your story is a testament to that, of leaning into the, difficulties, the hardships that come up, because we're all going to have them. It's just a matter of how you deal with them. And if you let that push you back, or if you double down and figure out when you can control, like we touched on earlier. So I think that's huge. Number two, then, what is one of your favorite business books?
Business books. I would have to say, there's so many. I love reading business books. One that really stands out has got to be Vivid Vision. To be that specific about what you want is really important. And it's not just about a dollar figure in the bank account, or a number of doors you want, but it's looking into so many years into the future and knowing what, how you feel at that time, who you're with, where are you going, who do you work with, what does the, what do that dark, was it leather-bound books and deep mahogany smell like in your office? Yeah, it's important that you connect all the senses and emotions to what you want your future to look like, and you get granular about that, because that's going to be the driving force for all of those intermittent goals along the way.
Yeah, I like that. I have not read the book, but definitely going to write that one down, because I talk about that a lot, of just having focus on a particular business or goal. But even what you're saying is knowing step by step and all the different parts and processes to get there. You've got to make it clear, if you want it to happen, break it down. And so that's a good one, Vivid Vision. Number 3, then, what is one character trait you notice that successful people commonly share?
What's one? I'm sorry.
Yeah, one character trait that you see successful people commonly share.
They have a strong, almost unflappable core set of core standards, core values. If you look at somebody who is successful and happy, you could probably list off their core values to them. You know what they stand for. You never have to worry about whether you can trust them, or if they're going to show up on time, or you never have to worry if they're going to do what they say they're going to do, because you already know. So that filters into everything from discipline, work ethic, to everything. Is you got to have a strong set of core values.
Very good. I couldn't agree more. You've got to have that standard of where you're at personally, and other people should know that before, they even have to ask you, or oftentimes. So that's good. Well, the last one here is where can people connect with you? I know you have your podcast, so definitely make mention of that, but where can people connect with you?
Absolutely. So, of course, there's the Point of Impact podcast with Aaron Hale, and that's pointofimpactpod.com. And you can find me on all the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, though I'm not great about taking pictures and videos just yet. I'm still learning how to do that. There's a blind guy. But there's a podcast. There's our business website, solidgroundhomebuyers.co. And, of course, if you want to buy some chocolate and fudge treats, eodfudge.com.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, check all those out. I'm going to look that up myself with the EOD there with the fudge. So, yeah, I actually had the opportunity to be on Aaron's podcast there here recently. So definitely check out Point of Impact podcast as well. But Aaron, this has been great conversation, very insightful, and hearing your story is definitely a good challenge in a lot of ways. You have a good perspective on life and making the next right decision each time. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, and it's been a great conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Lincoln.
Yes. So thank you all for tuning into the Growth Circle podcast. If you found value from this, like I did, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review and rating. And thanks again for tuning in. We will catch you on the next one. Thanks.